Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Zanzal, coach, ordained minister, grandma, mama of four, and a queer woman married to my lovely, gorgeous wife after I came out later in life. This is Coming Out and Beyond LGBTQIA Plus Stories, a podcast for everyone exploring identity, queerness, and what it means to live more truthfully, no matter our age or stage. We share stories of coming out, starting over, resiliency, how to navigate relationships, grief, joy, and building lives that actually fit us as human beings. No labels required, just curiosity, courage, and a little faith in this journey. Welcome. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Coming Out and Beyond LGBTQIA Plus Stories. I am Anne-Marie Zanzal.
And hi, I'm Barbara Rowlandson.
And we are going to talk about a very important topic today, right, Barb?
Absolutely. It's one that impacts a huge percentage of the women we work with.
And women in general, especially women who are getting divorced. So Barb and I, it's so funny because we call ourselves LGBTQ coaching, and we talk about, questioning sexuality, and we talk about, should I come out? But honestly, folks, the majority of the work that we do is divorce support.
Yeah, I would say that's absolutely true. And the stuff that we're going to talk about today is relevant to pretty much any woman who is on a separation and divorce journey, whether you're straight or queer.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. So Barb and I are going to give you the largesse of the mistakes we made.
Learn from our missteps, yes.
We learned from our mistakes. Shout out to Colorado State University. My son goes there and they have a nice Pride mug. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the Pride mug. So I might as well shout them out since I'm doing
that's so nice. I'm jealous. I want one.
Yeah. So one of the things that Barb and I learned a lot from is the mistakes that we made in our own divorce. And Barb and I didn't divorce each other, by the way. We divorced men.
That's right.
We divorced our ex-husbands. And so we have 7 things we wish we knew before we were getting divorced. I think I also have a companion blog piece coming out with this. So this is all written down and you can read that, listen. You don't have time to listen. You can go and read it on my website, annemariezanzal.com. But there were 7 things that I wish I knew before I was getting divorced. And the first one is, Barb.
Oh, well, the first one in order that we have them listed here is that kind of important to look up how divorce actually works in the place where you live.
Right. So this is the number one thing. Divorce is different from state to province to country. It is just different. So every state and province and country handles divorce a different way. Don't assume that you know the divorce laws in your state or province or country.
That's right. And we never give advice in that regard because we can't.
Right. Because we are not lawyers.
We're not lawyers. Yeah.
We always advise our clients, we advise everyone, is that the laws can be very, very different. And so what may be true in one state can be totally irrelevant in another one. So for example, like in the United States, I just happen to know in the state of North Carolina, you have to wait a year to get divorced. And you can still be like, if you are having an affair, you can still be sued for what's it called? Alienation of affections. So if somebody is having an affair in a divorce, that can affect your divorce. Most states don't have that anymore. Most states don't care about that stuff because that is an emotional thing. States care about the business of your marriage.
Yeah, that was one of the things that actually surprised me about the marriage process, probably because at the time I was emotionally fraught. And those were the concerns that were at the foremost of my mind, when in reality, our lawyers didn't care about any of that. I mean,
No.
divorce in my experience, was a lot more formulaic than I had anticipated. Like our divorce lawyers literally have a computer software program that they enter in different numbers of assets and then hit enter, and then gives you a division of who's entitled to what.
And Barb is in the province of Ontario. So what can be different in the province? But that's not everybody's divorce.
Right.
And so we want you to know that. My divorce, I got divorced in the state of Connecticut, and basically it was a division of assets and a negotiation around that. Our youngest child was 16 at the time, so we did have to do some child custody stuff. But even in child custody, there can be formulas in states and things that you have to work. Child custody, especially around financial support around child custody. But go check it out. And what I also know is that the women that are thinking about divorce often assume they know what's going to happen, and they say, oh, I can't afford to get divorced. I have to stay together. So they assume they know what's going to happen, and they just don't. And sometimes they use it as a reason not to move forward, even though they desperately want to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you can't afford to talk to a lawyer, now back in the day, some lawyers did give free consultations. I don't know how prevalent that is anymore, but you can check out in your state, call around, ask about if they give a free consultation, and go have your questions answered. If you cannot do that, you have your friend Google. And so you can Google all of the divorce laws in your state and figure out what they are. But it's always good to have it interpreted through the lens of a lawyer, because even though we may be reading it, and even though they may be, we may think we know what it says, sometimes we don't. That is why a divorce requires a professional.
Well, and I think this is leading into our second point, right? Which is, you talk about in your blog piece how you avoided a lawyer because you thought it might make things worse. And in fact, what we're really doing by consulting a professional, just like, if we were to consult a tax lawyer or an investment banker about our financial assets, we want to consult a lawyer so that we have professional guidance around the laws pertaining to separation and divorce. You wouldn't go to a dentist to get your hair cut.
Mm-mm.
So, so go to a professional who specializes.
Well, we did.
in this
And in
area.
my blog piece, I talk about we went to mediation because, like a lot of women, I just thought that we were going to be able to amicably talk about the separation of assets.
Right.
And in my blog piece, I write about how the mediator fired my husband
Yes.
and said that we can no longer work together because my ex-husband was unable to negotiate in good faith. He was very emotionally heightened. And now in retrospect, probably we shouldn't have started the divorcing process until we should have let 6 months go by before we started to engage. This was
Great
pretty
advice.
soon afterwards. And so we should have probably separated and waited 6 months to maybe 9 months to just let the emotions of what was going on to settle a little bit. And so that's going to be our 8th piece of advice. So I'm going to rewrite the book today and add that as if you can, now not everyone can, if you can, wait 6 months or to 6 months to a year to let your emotions settle down. Let your spouse's emotions settle down, to make you realize, to maybe let go of some of the guilt you feel about getting divorced, because we're going to talk about that as well. So, and that brings me to our second point, which is the person you are divorcing is not the person were married to.
That's right.
And that is a really hard thing to wrap your head around, because often when we get divorced, and we are also not the same person either, so I'm not just saying that, oh, it's the man and they're not the same. No, we're not the same person that he experienced in the marriage. So a lot of times, people, including myself, often believe they're still dealing with the person that they were married to. So my ex-husband never would have done that if we were still married, but he went into protective mode of himself. He also was somebody always that was highly, highly worried about money and stuff like that. And so, of course, he's going to become almost vengeful about the money. And so, but I never experienced him that way in our marriage because I was his partner. But once we were separating, he became how I had seen him act in business sometimes. And so, he was no longer my husband. He was the man I was divorcing.
Right, right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense relationally. And I think I resonate with everything that you said. I had a parallel experience to that. A big mistake I made was making moves in the relationship and treating the relationship in the same way I always had, with the expectation that he would respond in the ways he always normally would have. But in fact, he's different now. And so was I. And we both really couldn't predict each other as well at that point. So there was a lot of uncertainty. And you're right, there's a lot of self protection that goes along there. I would say yes, but definitely for all the same reasons. My ex husband was very self protective. And so was I. I was protective of what I had newly discovered about myself.
Mhm.
And I placed such high value on that, that I wasn't about to let that go. Now is the time to sign up for Wing Women Weekend, October 15th to 18th in Provincetown, Massachusetts. This isn't just a conference, it's a lifeline for women and non-binary folks who are new to queer community. You'll be stepping into a place where the energy is electric. Here is where you'll be seen, celebrated, and safe in your new queer identity. And you can receive 10% off your registration when you use the coupon code PRIDE. That's PRIDE. Participants report that this experience is life-changing. For more information and to sign up, visit wingwomenweekend.com. And I had a lot of expectations that we would both be very cooperative going forward, because we always had been. However, that kind of went out the window.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that happened with me too. I mean, I expected him to be cooperative like we had always been,
right.
and that went out the window. But what also was very challenging in the divorce was my own guilt around getting divorced.
Mm-hmm.
I had been acculturated or conditioned to believe that divorce was bad. And I had experienced that since the time I was a tiny, tiny child. My parents stayed together through thick and thin. And I remember when I was young, really wishing they would get divorced because it was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And my ex-husband had parents that were quite the same way. So that's probably one of the reasons we hung in there so long. But one of the things is that I felt a lot of guilt. I felt a lot of guilt for changing our family system. I felt a lot of guilt that I still had like at the time, 16 years old, because I always knew that I never thought I would get divorced while I still had a child under 18 at home. And I did. I just couldn't wait any longer. I also have a bonus baby. He's a lot younger than his siblings. So he was the child that actually went through the divorcing process with us. I felt a ton of guilt. And
Sure.
I know that I think that's the number one thing that we help people with is dealing the guilt and shame around divorcing and
Mm-hmm.
coming out too. But I think a lot of our clients, we reflect back that the hardest thing for them was not the coming out process. And that was for me too. It wasn't the coming out process. It wasn't admitting that I was gay. The hardest thing for me was getting a divorce.
Sure, sure. And precipitating changes to my family that they didn't ask for.
Correct.
Right. A lot of guilt around that, a lot of shame around that as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
Mom shame.
Yeah, speak to the shame because we want you to know that having shame around divorce is really normal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And shame is just an emotion. Just remember that.
Well, shame, I think, comes from my choices that went against my pre-baked narratives of what a good mom does. And
Hmm.
I never thought that I would leave my marriage before my kids were finished high school.
Hmm.
Well, I've got news for you folks. It doesn't get easier after they leave, they go to high school, or they're finished high school. There are challenges to that scenario too.
Well, both Barb and I have experienced that as well.
Absolutely. It does not get
Children
easier.
actually, it's so funny because when we have a client that has children under 9 and under, we're like, oh, you're so lucky because little kids
Yes.
handle divorce so much better than older children because little children just want to know they're going to be loved and taken care of. And
Mhm.
as long as you have a partner that you're divorcing that is committed to the children in the way that you are, generally little kid, it just becomes their normal very, very quickly.
Very quickly, yes.
Yeah, and so especially little kids, like if you have 2 kids under 6, I'm
Mhm.
gonna say it might be harder as a parent, but the divorce will be easier on the children.
There are pluses and minuses to any scenario at any age that your kids are coming out. One of the challenges that I think a lot of folks don't consider when their kids are maybe transitioning into high school or transitioning into college is that they are going through their own big life change. And so knowing that their parents are also undergoing a change creates even more uncertainty for them. This is already a really difficult transition for them. And so that can compound the difficulty. However, the plus side is being young adults, they can much more easily comprehend and have a much stronger concept of the nature of adult relationships.
Mhm.
So you can have a very real conversation with them and they're much more likely to understand. Whereas younger children maybe have a more difficult time understanding why mommy and daddy don't want to be together anymore.
I
So
agree.
if you're waiting for your kids to hit some magic age for
Age?
this to be okay, you're going to be waiting for a very long time because there is
Mhm,
no magic age. And in any scenario, you simply make the most meaning that you can from it and deal with the challenges as they come and maybe not forecast them as well. Because
mhm,
maybe, and kids are more and more sophisticated today than I think they ever have been. They have more access to information that they ever have. You might be surprised by what they understand.
mhm. You certainly might. So both Barb and I entered relationships pretty soon after we left our marriage. Barb was already in a relationship. I met my wife soon after, right in the process when I was separating from my husband. And our piece of advice, although is what, Barb?
Mhm.
And this is with a caveat for me.
Yeah, don't leap so quickly from one relationship from your marriage into the next relationship. That is something that I did. Those two things were very, very close together. And what from based on my own experience and what I've learned from the women that we work with is that without that period of time to be able to grieve and have some self-reflection and understand how you got here and doing that on your own terms without reference to anyone else. It can be very difficult. You'll be going through that while you're also trying to cultivate a new relationship. It's just really, really difficult. It puts strain on you. It also puts strain on your new partner as
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
Oftentimes it can be very difficult for a new partner to watch you grieve your old relationship.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, as newly out queer people, queer women, we are used to treating our women partner or women friends as our confidants. And so a lot of times we tell our new female partners things that we would never tell a boyfriend. And
Mhm.
because we are so used to sharing with our girlfriends. And so just remembering that your new female partner is not your bestie, she is, but she's also your lover. And you need to remember that. And the rule of thumb Barb and I always use is that if you wouldn't tell this to a new boyfriend, don't tell it to your new girlfriend.
Right.
And it's not that the fact that I'm not saying you're lying. It's like taking care of her feelings and taking care of her emotions. Find a professional to talk about all the things you are going through. For me, I ended up starting to date my now wife about a month after. I mean, we were talking a little bit before, but I started dating her a month after I left my marriage. What Barb says is true. My wife had to hold a lot of things that were very complicated, and I had to navigate the grief of leaving a 27-year marriage and also navigate this new person's feelings. Now, my
Mhm.
wife had never been in a relationship with somebody who'd been married to a man, and she never had been in a relationship with somebody with children before. Her naivety was what led her to be able to be in a relationship with me.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you, it was hard. It
Right.
was really hard for the both of us. And what I'm sharing with you is nothing that we haven't talked about together. We will actually link an episode in which we talk about how hard it was for us.
Mhm.
And I agree with now the nice thing is I was in a long distance relationship. So we were long distance for 18 months. So I did have some alone time and some time to process, but not in the way that I really needed it.
Mhm.
So here I am. I'm like, if you can't see me, I'm juggling all these balls. I'm like, have this incredibly angry ex-husband. I have this girlfriend that is so used to dating in the queer world. She has no experience of all that stuff. And she is just ready to go. Let's
Right.
be in a relationship. Let's be each other's person. And I'm like, wait, wait, wait. I have just come out of a 27-year marriage and I'm not ready for that yet.
Maybe I'm Not Straight is a do-it-your-own pace course that examines why it can be so hard to come out. In this course, we talk about divorce, deconstructing religious beliefs, internalized homophobia, and more. And for those of you who have unexpectedly found yourselves falling in love with a woman, and if that first lesbian relationship is now over, our course, When the Catalyst Relationship Ends, explores why first lesbian relationships are so impactful and why breakups in these relationships are so life-changing. You'll find our courses Maybe I'm Not Straight and When the Catalyst Relationship Ends in Authentically Us. Find Authentically Us at AnneMarieZanzal.com.
And so, the good thing is some of the good things we did not U-Haul. Although if my wife had lived close to me, I probably would have.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Yeah,
That new bond? Yeah,
I would.
absolutely.
I was in my second adolescence. We were so hot and heavy for each other. It was something I had never experienced before. I was so in love and so horny and just it was amazing the first couple years of our relationship, but I would have probably moved in with her. So luckily, we did not U-Haul. It was 18 months of being together before I moved down to Tennessee. And also too, I'm really proud that it was like 5 years later before we got married. So we were together 5 years before we got married. And so I didn't rush anything. I was like, I need to heal. And because I was a grief counselor, I was really lucky. So when she started to get annoyed at my grief, because it's hard to be with somebody who's grieving
Mhm.
all the time, and only a saint can do it for so long. And I'm going to tell you, she was pretty much a saint for a year or two. And then she started to get pissed off because she didn't want to grieve my marriage
Sure,
or any
sure.
of that other stuff. So with that, I was lucky enough to know that I was allowed my grief. And
Mhm.
so we would have like little spats. I'm like, I am allowed to grieve. I am going to grieve today. And if you don't like it, too bad.
Mhm.
But then I also care about her and I love her. And, so I'm trying to get over my grief as quickly as I can. I was comfortable enough to take up space with my grief, but
Mhm.
it became like a little tug of war around that
Well,
as well.
it's funny that you just say tug of war because just as I'm sitting here listening to you talk, I'm imagining, visualizing a tug of war between these two extreme emotions and understanding too that like new relationships, as heady and wonderful and satisfying and invigorating as they can be, they are also stressful. even
Yes.
even positive stress is still stress and it has an impact on the body. So without taking that space to be able to become more grounded in yourself, more certain of who you are, let's not forget too that after we've been married for 20, 30, 40 years, it's not uncommon to find yourself, at least that was certainly true of me, asking, who am I? Who am
Well,
I outside of the context of my marriage? Because it
absolutely.
becomes so much a part of your identity.
Mhm.
It is worth taking that extra bit of time to rediscover yourself, fall back in love with yourself, offer yourself some compassion, that space for grieving that we're talking about, getting back in touch with what your values are. I know I talk about values all the time. I'm nonstop. I'm just on repeat about values. But the reality is we may not really know what we value in life until we're on our own.
Well, and I also hear you saying like fall in love with yourself again. Maybe fall in love with yourself for the first time. too.
Mm.
Because a lot of people, I think Barb and I really struggled to love ourselves until after we came out. And so for both of us, I think it was falling in love for the unique people that we each are. That was like the first time for both of us,
Mm-hmm.
that we really fell in love with ourselves and who we are and what we have to offer. We became very grounded in knowing what we are, who we are, and how we can help the world.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is, okay, so I know that people have all kinds of, variables in this, but if you are somebody who is in a catalyst relationship, or you have met somebody soon after your divorce, we would highly, highly recommend not living with them right away. If it can be 6 months, a year, just living on your own. And I know that sometimes people don't have the money, all kinds of things. But if you can wait to move in with your catalyst 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year, it will give you some time to be on your own. If you have children, it'll give your children some time to adjust to the new changes that are happening with mom and dad before you enter, even if they know your catalyst, it'll give them time to adjust to the divorce before you bring in a new parental figure into their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So really advise, if you can do it. Now, if you can't do it, the second piece of advice, don't get married right away.
No.
Wait a couple of years. Give yourself, if you're like, I love this woman, I'm going to live with them. I don't care what you say. Okay, we hear you. We hear you. But don't get married.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a couple of years. Wait 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, because this is a new relationship. And if you've only been with your catalyst 6 months, a year and a half, there's going to be a lot of things that come up
For
that
sure.
if you're married to her, it's going to take a lot more effort to get divorced than it is to break up and to separate finances and all those things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I am not just saying that for the woman who is coming out later in life. I am also saying it to the woman who may be the catalyst and may be a long time out lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, no matter how crazy you are about this woman, how much you want to raise her children with her, like she's the love of your life, give yourself some time. Give yourself 6 months, a year, 2 years. Just give yourself some time to settle from the chaos of getting divorced. And maybe if you guys met each other and that was the impetus for the divorce, just give yourself some time, because I'll tell you, Barb and I have heard of so many catalyst relationships where they get married quickly that are now over a year or 2 or 3 years later. It's just a tremendous amount of change for everybody to absorb.
It is, and I think a lot of it is attributed to, okay, I've fallen in love with this woman. I'm exiting my marriage, which is unsatisfying, moving into my next long-term relationship very quickly. And then behaving in ways in the new relationship that mirrored how you behaved in the old relationship. And
Mhm.
by the way, this goes for the other partner too, right?
Yeah.
They're repeating their go-to moves when it
Well, for
comes to
example, if
conflict.
you're somebody who is a rescuer and you see this woman struggle, I think that's a little bit of my wife. You
Right.
know, she wanted
Right.
to rescue somebody. She wanted to be with, and so like Barb is saying, we both bring our patterns into the relationship.
Exactly. So before you decide to make this relationship legally binding, really take some time to understand what your both of your moves are in relationship and that you actually can be compatible for the long haul. And if you encounter problems, learning how to overcome those. And boy, I mean, I'm not here to pitch anything, but let me tell you, we have like in the Catalyst course that we have, and in the lesbian couples course that we have, that's coming out imminently. We cover a lot of this ground in both of those mini courses. Highly, highly, highly. If you do not do anything else,
By
please
the
buy the courses. I think they're what, like 30, $40, something in
well,
there?
the Catalyst course is we always believe in communities. So Barb and
Mhm.
I always put the courses inside of Authentically Us. So inside of Authentically Us, you get Authentically Us, the Catalyst course, and the Maybe I'm Not Straight course, which
Right.
is a great, like the Maybe I'm Not Straight course, even if you're like, oh, Anne-Marie, I know I'm a lesbian. This gives like a real understanding of why this is so hard. So
Right.
this is actually, that course will help you defeat your internalized homophobia like that if
Yeah.
you listen to that course.
Well, and then the groups as well. I think that's the other layer that we need to talk about. Yeah.
But, you can, and I'm going to just say this, the community changes everything. So being with a bunch of women, even if it's just 6 months, being with a bunch of women who understand what you're going through, or even under like something you may have gone through a couple years ago,
Mhm.
because I have a lot of women reach out to me that like help my new relationships in turmoil. I don't know what catalyst, excuse me, the healthy lesbian relationships course, which is called Secure Bonds, that is also housed inside of Authentically Us. And what is amazing about that course, it is not written by me. It is written by a psychologist, Dr. Robin Saison, and I'm just helping her get this out to the world. It will teach lesbian couples how to interact and to be with each other. And it gives such good information about that. So if you're interested in that course, please go and sign up for like my newsletter on my website, and we are launching that course, as Barb said, imminently, probably within the next 2 weeks. Been working on this for almost a year now. This is an incredible course.
Oh, yeah.
Getting back to, we're going to move on from catalyst relationships. And also too, this is, if you're a straight girl listening to this right now, this is true for even if you're going to move in with your boyfriend or move in with a man. Date him for a while. Even if you're head and over heels in love with them, date him for a while. Make sure this is the right person for you before you commit to marriage. And then Barb said something really interesting to me when we were talking about what we're going to talk about on this episode. She goes, "Man, I wish I listened to my friends." So talk
Yep.
a little bit about that.
And again, this is advice for, doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. I had people close to me, women who had gone through separation and divorce before me, who had a lot of great advice to give. Hey, don't give up your power too quickly. Don't settle for less than what you're entitled to. You might be bargaining right now by letting go of things to keep the peace, but in the long run, you have to think about
Your future.
your future, and it's expensive to, say, replace every stick of furniture, every pot and pan, to find a new place to, like, all of that. But so often, and myself included, I let go of a lot for the sake of keeping the peace. Every woman who I know who was close to me gave me that advice, and I didn't listen. Why? Because I thought, first of all, I was very much in my feelings, and I wanted to believe that I was the exception of the rule, that
Mhm.
that our divorce was going to be the best divorce ever.
Oh, how many of you think, I am going to build this big modern family and we're
Exactly.
all love each other. Well, that goes with the caveat. Your ex-spouse has to want to build the big
Right,
modern family.
right, right. I blame Glennon Doyle. I'm sorry. She wrote about her divorce in her book and as being this, like, idyllic thing, and everybody being like having grace for each
Well,
other. And that was
well,
not my experience of divorce.
no, but
Right.
and so sometimes, people will fall in line because maybe her husband wanted to keep the peace. You know what I mean?
So,
Yeah,
yeah, the fantasy that existed in my head
did not.
was not reality.
No, it didn't. Yeah, that me either. Every one of, Barb and I, so many times we will sit in our support groups or sit with our coaching clients, and they'll say, that's not going to happen. We're going to be fine. We're going to build this big, beautiful family. And I just smile, and I'm of course not going to yuck anybody's yum. And yes, maybe 10% of the time somebody is able to do that. That requires a lot of work on both your side and your spouse's side. And in our experience, we have found that most men can't do it.
Mhm.
There are the exceptions. There's some really lovely husbands out there that really love their wives and just want the best for them. But most of them either want to move on or, they just are not able to maintain that big modern family scenario of everybody like loving each other and holding hands and singing kumbaya as they go on vacation in Hawaii. You know, just that doesn't happen.
Maybe some people can. Something I've noticed is that folks who are from more collectivist cultures, where family is very central and important, are better able to navigate that, because once you're family, you're always family. But for the rest of us who are from a more individualistic place, it's much more about what can I get out of this scenario, and much more self-interested. And so,
Yes.
unfortunately, that it leads to adversarial moves in separation and divorce.
Mhm.
So, you know what? Hope for the best, plan for the
Mhm.
worst, listen to your girlfriends because they know they've
And
been there.
listen to us because we know this doesn't come from a place of bitterness or
No,
anything.
no.
It comes from a place is we don't want people to have to realize these things on their own the way Barb and I had to. And we just want to make sure we help you protect your future and the future of your children as much as possible. And like when Barb started talking about not listening to her girlfriends, I was thinking to myself, that harkens back to the guilt she felt about leaving her marriage. So making, like she felt guilty. We both talked about feeling guilty, but she's like, well, I'm just going to try to make this as smooth as possible. And oh, I'm in love. So, we're just going to ride off into the sunset together. And so that catalyst, that guilt, of course,
Mhm.
she's going to make those mistakes because
Oh, I mean, when I think back there, I had such, I was such an innocent, such naivety,
yeah, me
you know?
too. Some of the things like some of the things I did as a late in life lesbian, if one of my clients was going to go do that, I'd be like, "No."
Exactly. Yeah.
So the last thing that we really want to encourage everybody, whether you find someone locally, find someone online, get professional support
Oh,
around.
yeah.
I, for the life of me, don't understand why people don't seek out professional support when they're going through a divorce, whether they're gay or straight. Divorce is hard. If we have surrounded ourselves with straight world, a lot of times our straight friends and our straight family, excuse me, our married friends and a married family, that's what I meant to say, not straight. Our married friends and our married family often don't understand divorce. And sometimes they will back away because they're afraid it's catching.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're jealous because they want to leave their marriages and they just don't have the strength that you do to leave your marriage. Um,
Uh-huh.
so, not having somebody that is in your corner or a community that is in your corner is you're only hurting yourself.
Well, earlier I said you wouldn't go to the dentist to get your hair cut. Well, an extension of that is you wouldn't do your own fillings, and hopefully you wouldn't cut your own hair. Never recommend. You've seen me cut my own bags. It never works out well. So instead of going it alone, yes, you are a capable and smart woman, but you're also under a lot of stress. And you're probably navigating something really, really difficult for the very first time. If this is your first separation and divorce, don't do it by yourself. My
Mhm,
goodness.
mhm,
When we need professional guidance, and we do it in all other areas of our lives, but I think a lot of times women choose not to get help for a couple of reasons. One is financial, right? They worry about, I can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford mental health support right now. Well, here's the thing, you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later.
yeah,
And often if you kick the can down the road, you end up paying more later
mhm,
in the moves that you make, which lead to uh, mistakes, right? That
absolutely.
lead to your detriment. But also, it's very emotionally fraught, right? So it's that fraught that we bring to assumptions of, oh, I can't do that right now, or I can't tackle this right now, and have also externalizing a lot of the stress. I'm here to take care of my ex-husband. I'm here to take care of my children, everybody else, my new partner, without really taking care of self. There's a huge culture that conditions women to put themselves very last on the list of care. This is your time, Phoenix, who is rising from the ashes. This is your time to take care of yourself.
Mhm,
So, the time to invest in getting professional help, mental
mhm.
health support, community support it starts now.
And also, too, I'm going to raise this up. Do you think that you're not getting support because you have blown up your family or blown up your marriage? And so your guilt and shame is saying, I don't deserve support.
Hmm.
I think that happens to a lot of people.
Hmm.
They believe they don't deserve support because they've done something bad.
Hmm.
And you haven't done anything bad. You are just changing your family
Hmm.
and You are discovering who you are. And if you are in midlife between 35 and 55, that is exactly what you're supposed to be doing right now. That
Exactly.
is that is part of human development, the time in midlife where we question, am I happy? Is this what I want out of my life? Or am I just following somebody else's map? And I find that a lot of women, whether they're gay or straight, have spent their lives following somebody else's map.
So
And
true.
so the reason why this isn't clear is because you're not following someone else's map. You are forging your own path right now. And so finding people that can support you. And that's what Barb and I do. Join Authentically Us. It's very reasonable. It's free for the first month, so you get to try it. It's $35 a month after that. I don't know where you can get professional support like that at that price level.
Agreed.
And you have a community of women who understand what you're going through.
Mhm.
And then if you want to push up the level of support and have a smaller community and have Barb and I meeting with you one-on-one, then join our Lotus Community Coaching. That coaching program has changed hundreds of women's lives.
Mhm.
And, I receive emails all the time, Barb does too, in which people thank us for sharing, for changing their lives. It is not ethical for us to share those emails. I will never put that as a review anywhere or a testimonial anywhere because that is something someone has shared privately with me. But I want you to know that we know how to support women who are going through this incredible journey. And we have cheered on and supported and loved on so many women. And what I want to say about Lotus is a place where you will receive the love and the support and the community while you build your own in-person community and place where you can find a soft place to land. So we are a soft place to land, and we help you create a soft place to land for yourself.
Mhm.
So that is our 7 or 8. I don't know.
We'll stop counting a little
Not
while.
adding things as we went along. Our 7 or 8 things that we wish we knew about divorce before we got divorced. Thank you so much, Barb. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for being my partner. Barb came on us like 3 or 4 years ago, and she is my work partner. And it has been the honor of my life to watch this woman grow and become this beacon of knowledge and beacon of support for other women. It has been like truly the honor of my life.
Well, honor of my life, really. We've been together. Actually, I was just looking at it. We've been together for almost 4 years.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've learned at the feet of the master here.
Well, no, you've learned how to, no, but also Barb went back to school. And like a parent watching a child, I'm like, damn, she's getting smarter than me about this stuff. Barb is going to have her therapeutic degree soon. And at that point, Anne-Marie Zanzal coaching will become coming out and beyond. And Barb will be running the therapeutic side of our business. So we are going to be offering coaching and therapy. That'll probably happen in the next year or so. When Barb becomes official, she has been an amazing coach for all these years, but we needed somebody in our company that could provide therapy and supervise other therapists. And that's not me. I had no desire to go back to school and do that. I've already done enough of that stuff, but Barb has. And so we will be offering therapy and coaching probably within the next year. So when Barb gets done with all the requirements she needs to become an official licensed therapist. So we're really excited that's going to be coming in the future. And so my last question for you today is, what could happen for you if you stepped into the life that the universe wants you to
That's a great question. And hey, be brave enough to dream it.
live?
It's just thoughts at this point. I know it can seem scary, but really, if we start to just visualize, you're not hurting anybody by visualizing, by dreaming and thinking about what that life could look like.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have the right kind of support, we can start to help you create those small actionable steps that gets you closer to what you visualized for yourself.
Thank you, Barb.
Well, thank you so much, Anne-Marie. It was great to spend this time with you. You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA+ Stories with Anne-Marie Zanzal. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at AnneMarieZanzal.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit AnneMarieZanzal.com.